Hi, welcome to the Departure Lounge. My name's John. In this video today, we're going to take a look at a sensitive yet crucial part of the funeral process. This is the topic of funeral arrangements and everything that you're going to discuss with your funeral director to get all of the logistics and some of the personal touches in place ready for your loved one's funeral. Now, this is obviously a very emotionally charged experience, and navigating the practical aspects of saying goodbye can be quite overwhelming for some people. That's why I'm here really, to provide you with some insights and guidance to make this process more manageable and hopefully to help you honour your loved one with the dignity and respect that they deserve. Funeral arrangements are a critical aspect of the grieving process. They involve a series of very thoughtful decisions and considerations that need to be made. So in this video, we'll focus on some of those today. Let's walk through the next steps together as we look at some of the choices that you're going to need to make. I hope this video will empower you with knowledge and provide a comforting resource during a time that a lot of people can feel is very isolating. So at this point, you'll have no doubt already chosen a funeral director, and they would have been in touch to make an appointment with you to either come and see you, or you may be going to see them to arrange the funeral. The first question that I always try and answer as a funeral director would be, when is the funeral? What date can we have it on? That's because most families have that as a top question, and it's generally because they'll have been bombarded by family and friends all asking them when is the funeral so they can attend. Generally, in the UK, we would be talking on average 7 to 10 days from when the family have registered for you to be able to have a funeral. It can vary at times. There are busy times such as over Christmas, and the winter period also proves quite challenging. So sometimes that time frame can slip a bit, and it has been known for people to wait 3 to 4 weeks. One of the first questions that your funeral director is going to need to know is, are we going to be talking about a burial or a cremation? Now, this is a really important question, and it's one that kind of needs to be answered as soon as possible. And the reason for that is the paperwork is completely different. So your funeral director is going to know which set of paperwork they need to begin completing for you. The next aspect to have a look at is whether you want that service, the funeral service, to be religious or non-religious. Will it take place in a church, or is it going to take place at a local crematorium? For burials, if you don't have the funeral in a church, then you can always use a different venue for the actual service, and then obviously move across to whichever cemetery you intend to use. Also, for burials, you can have what's called a graveside service, but it's worth noting that this is obviously in the open air, and given the UK weather, particularly over winter, it's generally not advisable because you could end up getting very wet. One of the next questions that needs to be answered is, how are you going to get to the funeral? Do you want to use the funeral director's limousine? Obviously your loved one will travel in the hearse, and then family members would travel in a limousine. Most limousines here in the UK will carry 6 to 7 people. So you may need more than one, and this can get expensive. Some families decide not to have any limousines at all, and they prefer to follow behind in their own family cars. In fact, I've known quite a lot of people actually drive their loved one's car to their own funeral. This is always a nice touch, and it's something that I think really is a good idea if it suits, if it fits, of course. One of the next things to think about is, where does the funeral cortege start from? So where are we going to begin? Is it going to be at the deceased's house? Is it going to be at your house? they may no longer have a home, then that may have been sold to provide nursing care, so you may wish to go from your own home. Sometimes some families opt to go from the funeral director's offices, and normally that's perfectly fine. In those instances, you tend to find that's where the family don't live locally anymore and they just feel they want to start somewhere. A more modern approach, though, would be to meet the hearse at the venue. And this does away with the whole following behind the coffin bit. A lot of people really don't enjoy that part, so it's not necessary to put ourselves through it. It's worth noting that a lot of the funeral traditions that we have come from the Victorians, and they weren't exactly known for being emotional or sensitive in any way. So it's kind of strange that we still look to them to get our traditions and rituals around funerals. But of course, there is always comfort in the familiar. Now, the next part to have a look at would be, from the funeral director's perspective, is after the service, are you going to go straight home, or do they need to take you to another venue to have either a wake or a funeral tea? This is often quite popular as it gives people an opportunity to sit down, enjoy some refreshments and to share in some memories. And again, that's not a problem, it's all generally included in the service from the funeral director. They don't exactly expect you to get the bus back from the crematorium. Once you get to your venue though, it's also worth noting that they will drop you off there and you will have to make your own way home. So that's always something to think about. The funeral director will also be asking you about some different ways to personalise the service. Now, the most common way of doing this is with some music, and if you are looking at music, then for a cremation, you're generally looking at 3 pieces of music. Something to walk into, something to listen to in the middle, and something to leave by at the end. And the same would go for a church service. Again, something to come into, something to go out to at the end. And if it's a religious service, then obviously you may want to have hymns, but some families opt not to have hymns, and normally with most local churches that's perfectly fine. You can have your own piece of music. However, it's worth bearing in mind that some members of the clergy may have a preference to that music being celestial, shall we say. So you need to kind of think very carefully about those choices. If the funeral is being held in a crematorium, then there are normally no real limitations on the music. In fact, most crematoriums will happily accept music that contains bad language, because it's more about honouring the person than it is about censoring any foul language. If it's a song that resonates with the family and it helps them, then it's perfectly fine. Generally with music, what I always advise is the first piece of music should be quite sombre, quite soft and gentle. It should reflect what's going on at that particular moment. When we have the music at the start of a funeral, that's where the coffin will be carried into the chapel. So it needs to kind of be a little bit slow. If you choose something that's really up tempo, then the likelihood is the people carrying the coffin will kind of walk to the beat of the music, so they may end up going in a little too fast. Also, because of what's going on at that particular moment, it's best to avoid any music that you think might be funny. I'll give you an example. Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. It's a popular song. It's better for the end of the service, not the beginning, because you don't really want that to be the backdrop to your loved one's coffin being carried into the ceremony. It could have kind of a nightmarish feel to it. So we always advise something gentle, something soft for the beginning. I'll make a video that will go more in depth at funeral music, and we can have a look at some of the more popular options. Service sheets, the little booklets that you sometimes get at a funeral, the funeral director will provide these for you, and you may want to personalise these with photographs. You generally want to have a photo on the front and one on the back. And then obviously on the inside, if you're singing hymns, then that's where we can put the words to the hymns. Or it might just simply contain a running order listing the music and also what's going to happen. This is totally optional and it's not always necessary. It is also worth bearing in mind that a lot of these optional extras will have extra costs as well. Money should never be an object when arranging a funeral, but the reality of life means that it often is. Flowers are another way to personalise a service, and I think I'll make a video specifically for that as well, because there's a whole realm of different options there that you could choose to really bring out someone's personality. If your loved one has served in the military or in the emergency services, then they will be entitled to have the Union flag draped over their coffin. This is something that comes as a personal thank you from the King, and it's an honour reserved only for people who have served in the military or the emergency services. And obviously you don't have to have the Union flag. You could have the RAF ensign or the police flag or the Coast Guard flag, whichever one is going to be appropriate. It's quite popular for people to actually have flags or scarves from their favourite football or rugby teams. Again, that's not a problem. I love anything that brings someone's personality into a funeral service. I think it's really important that everyone tries to do that wherever possible. It certainly seems to help make things a lot easier on the family and friends that are attending. One of the other options to consider is the style of coffin. Most funeral directors will offer a standard coffin, and also they'll offer a whole range of different types of coffin, from banana leaf right through to sheep's wool. You'd be surprised at just the different range of coffins that are available. And again, that's probably going to be a video that I need to make as well. One of the other things a funeral director is going to ask you is if you wish them to place an obituary notice into the local newspaper. This is a less popular option these days, as newspapers are kind of falling out of favour, and it's often a question that comes up, well, who reads them? So a lot of families choose social media, and indeed a lot of funeral directors will actually offer to place an obituary notice onto social media on your behalf. Again, adding a photograph to this is a lovely touch, and there are some little verses that funeral directors will know and be able to offer you that you can add in as well. A lot of the options for the service itself will be something that you'll discuss with the person who is going to take the service. Obviously, if it's a religious service, that will be your vicar, priest, minister, or if it's a non-religious service, then you're going to have what's called a celebrant, sometimes known as a humanist, but they are slightly different. A celebrant is just someone who is trained specifically to deliver and write funerals, and they will want to come and see you as well and have a similar kind of a chat about but this will be more about the actual person rather than the service itself. They'll also help you write the eulogy, and it's worth having some of your favourite memories written down, maybe just little bullet points that you want to share with the minister or celebrant so that you can add some personal touches. It's always a good idea to add some funny stories as well. Adding humour into a funeral is, I think, a fabulous idea. It certainly helps to lift the mood, and as long as it's done correctly and sensitively, it does work very well. I hope that this information has served as a guiding light during a challenging time. Remember that you're not alone on this path, and there are dedicated professionals ready to support you and your family with compassion and understanding. If you found this video helpful, then please consider subscribing and liking the video so it makes it more available for others to find. Thank you for joining with me today. My thoughts are with you, and I wish you strength and solace as you navigate the journey of saying goodbye. Take care, and until next time, May your memories be a source of comfort and warmth.